Well, welcome to the Middlesex Moments radio show. I'm Dr. Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College right here in Middletown, Connecticut. And today I'm joined by Dick Wheeler and Marcella Trowbridge, who are ArtFarm, which is art-farm.org, and they are responsible for the production Much Ado About Nothing, which is happening this weekend here at the campus. And actually it's an extended weekend because it's Thursday through Sunday night. I'm lucky enough to have seen it once already. I'll be coming back.
Great.
But I wanted you all to have a chance to tell people why it's absolutely critical for them to make a decision to spend some of their free time just experiencing Shakespeare outdoors in the Grove.
Thank you, Anna. Well, part of it, you just said it's the Grove. It's a spectacular place to experience outdoor theater. Middlesex Community College, as you've been so gracious in having a partnership with us and allowing us to utilize and sort of draw magic from the space. The college is here with all of the classrooms and the spaces that are, sort of typical to an institution of higher learning. But then behind these buildings, there is this magical grove where people can sit on a grassy slope, and there's cedar trees behind the performers, and there's woods on one side, and the sunsets that you experience are to die for. So, among the many reasons, part of it is really the location. It's a very, very special spot. It's a hidden gem, right here on the Middlesex Community College campus. Maybe you can speak a little to the Shakespeare, Dick.
Well, I think the Shakespeare, Much Ado About Nothing, is going to appeal to just about any age, adults, kids. A lot of people bring their children, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, teenagers, and it's a comedy. It's pretty physical. People bump into things and fall into things, and crazy stuff happens. There's a lot of kooky music and a story that everybody can follow. I think that's one of the strengths of ArtFarm's Shakespeare is we tell the story clearly, but also in a real active physical style. And there's also beautiful music before each play. So at 6 o'clock each night, there's a different musician or musical group that plays for about 45 minutes while the audience is having their picnic and slowly trickling in. And then at 7 p.m., Much Ado About Nothing starts. So it is a great way to spend a weekend evening.
Okay, well, we have to take a break.
Sure.
And when we come back, we'll talk about the basic plot. But I want to talk about Dogberry, too. So
Sure.
there's a character in there that is unbelievable. So we'll be back right after this message. Well, welcome back. I'm Anna Wasesha today, talking with Dick Wheeler and Marcella Trowbridge. And they are the ArtFarm, the heart and soul of ArtFarm. Although I will say, after having seen Much Ado About Nothing, the company that you've assembled radiates in a wonderful orbit around the heart and soul of ArtFarm. And so we should really talk a little bit quickly about the plot of Much Ado, which I think I agree with you that it's accessible to anybody of any age. And the audiences really are made up of people of all ages. But then I want to talk about Dogberry. So first of all, though, let's talk about Beatrice and Benedict.
Oh, gosh.
And since you're Beatrice...
It's true. I have the privilege, not only being the artistic director and the choreographer and co-producer for this production, but I get to play Beatrice, who is, oh boy, what a spunky, feisty, bright, witty woman. And I love the relationship between Beatrice and Benedict. And it's interesting because, and I would love to speak to the company in many ways, because I think that's one of the reasons why, again, why ArtFarm? Why come to see ArtFarm do Shakespeare? Part of it is because of this phenomenal gift of a company that we have. We have some incredibly talented actors and artists and designers who choose to work with ArtFarm. And one of those talented actors is a gentleman named Brian Jennings, who's playing Benedict. And he's one of my favorite actors to work with. He and I played the leads in Macbeth as well years ago. And he's just a lot of fun. And what's so interesting in Beatrice and Benedict's relationship, they have this witty repartee. They kind of banter back and forth and claim to dislike one another, but it's so, in many ways, so typical. It's like a playground scene. You see this boy pull a girl's pigtail, and it looks like he doesn't like her, but he's really like flirting with her. and they have this kind of incredibly high-end wordplay, but they're actually being children in how they're wooing, and it's a very interesting relationship, and that's all, just one of the layers. So there's Beatrice and Benedict, who are, saying they don't like each other, playing, and they eventually get sort of duped or gulled into thinking the other one is in love with them, which makes them sort of finally break down the wall and recognize the feelings that they and acknowledge the feelings that they have. And then there's another layer of Hero and Claudio, who are sort of like, in terms of archetypes, they're the ingenue young loves, and they are getting married and falling in love and then get tricked. The hero is made out to have done something that she really didn't do, and so that there's confusion, and that's where the comedy breaks down into some of the drama that's often inserted into Shakespeare's comedies. And then, of course, there are these clowns, and maybe you can speak to Dogberry and the Watch, which is another layer of the multiple layers of story happening.
Right. Well, the crisis between Hero and Claudio, where their marriage breaks down at the wedding, and he disowns her at the wedding, and that crisis is allayed by a character called Dogberry and his group of clowns, and they really are clowns, and they're kind of, we've turned them into kind of Keystone Cop characters. Dogberry is the constable in the town, and incredibly misuses the English language, misspeaks in the most hilarious way you could imagine, and managed to recruit these three townsfolk as the Watch, who are the ones who ultimately find the villain and uncover the villain who is betrayed Hero. And but this, while the play, the way we've set it, it's all costumed and set in kind of 17th century Italy. Dogberry and his crowd all are basically out of 19th century England, and kind of a classic constable of the Watch that you would find in Keystone Cops or something like that. And so, like so many of Shakespeare's plays, you have these multiple plot lines that all intertwine, and then he manages to create a happy ending.
I know. It is remarkable that he's able to do it, because there are some really fun, actually, to take this play apart if you were in an English course too. Because Beatrice is really a strong person, and at the point that Claudio believes he's found out that Hero is a terrible woman and he has to denounce her on the day he's going to marry her, Beatrice goes to Benedict, who by this point is saying, we really do love each other, and she says, I want you to kill Claudio.
Kill him.
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't have me.
The play is inches away from being a tragedy. It's so close, and partly inserting Dogberry in there, which helps bring it back to this is a comedy, and Dogberry doesn't enter into the second half of the play.
Right.
And,
it is, again, in terms of the writing, it is always remarkable to me how Shakespeare really did weave those together in ways that at first you're not really sure what the relationships are. At first, Dogberry, you'd have no idea how that could relate to beautiful Hero in her white dress, and yet somehow it finds its way, and it's pretty rare that there's a loose end. Sometimes you have the thing that I struggle with, it's like when we did Taming of the Shrew, there's always controversy around the end of Shrew, because the lead female character, Katrina, Kate, who's so feisty and wild, she ends up what seems to be just giving over to the man at the end, and it's something you really have to, as an actress and as an audience member, reconcile with. And so that's something I sometimes struggle with, and I think it's interesting for an audience to look at and experience, is something like Hero being perceived as having been unfaithful, and how her lover treats her based on that information, and that at the end, once she's revealed as having been innocent, how she quickly just takes his hand again, even though through a modern filter you would say he really messed up. He really, how could he have treated her that way if he truly loved her, even if he thought he had been betrayed. So there's ethical issues. I mean, I think that that's one of the reasons why we spend so much of our life's energy moving towards this work, is because it is an opportunity for reflection on the human condition. And it's our privilege as artists, but as audience members, to be able to experience something and witness something and internally process right from wrong, good from bad. I've felt that. I don't like that. I've done something that made me feel like that. Or I love that. That feels like joy. And those are the kinds of things that we hope to bring to an audience and to elicit from an audience through our dedication to the text, to the language, to being very physically connected, because again, I think that greatly increases the accessibility. So then you have folks who are new to Shakespeare, and they're going to get a lot of it and what they're ready for. And you're going to get Shakespeare aficionados, and they're going to get even more because it's all there. So we're really privileged in terms of the artists that we work with and the space that we're in and the collaborations that we have and the text that we get to work with.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Do you get critical reviews? Have you had somebody come in and say X, Y, and Z?
We have had a few small reviews because we only run 2 weekends. You have to run 4 to be able to get a proper review in the state of Connecticut.
4.
So we are considering expanding our weeks, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether we're ready for 4, maybe for 3. But yeah, you can't get reviewed unless you do.
Wow. Well, I did not know that. And so previously, did you do 3 weekend nights and you expanded to 4, or have you always done
always
Thursdays
been Thursdays
to Sunday?
to Sundays. Yep, it's always
It's always been the hottest weekends of the summer.
Better
Only
than
this
the
time,
wettest.
this time you have a pool, right?
That's right. I'm
So,
the only one that gets to dunk in it.
Yeah. Well, somebody trips into
Oh,
it.
that's true.
Dogberry might trip
Dogberry
into
Ray
it.
steps in.
He
Yeah,
does. He does.
He steps into a lot of things. You might as well step into the pool. So we have to take a break, and we'll get back, and let's talk about the set. And so we'll have Marcella Trowbridge and Dick Wheeler. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, we're back for the last segment of the radio show to talk about Much Ado About Nothing with Marcella Trowbridge and Dick Wheeler and ArtFarm, art-farm.org. And here we are at mxcc.edu. Isn't it strange in a way how we've become identified with our URLs?
Right.
And then one time I looked up what a URL stands for, but
I don't know.
pop quiz, and
remember.
nobody knows.
No,
I don't remember. It didn't stick. So obviously the acronym has become more powerful than whatever it stood for. All right, so speaking of more powerful, I've seen only 3 productions now since I've been in Connecticut, and the stage this time around is really unbelievable. So it certainly lends to the magic. But let's talk about that stage.
Yeah.
I mean, and who designed it, and why that, and I will just say to the listeners, come out and see it because it'll blow your mind.
Right.
But yeah, you made decisions
Sure.
about that stage. So.
Absolutely. Well, there's a young artist and designer named Brian Sharon, and this is the 3rd year he's worked with us. I think he did Taming of the Shrew and 12th Night for us before working with us this year, and we love Brian. We plucked him right out of school when he graduated from UConn with his technical theater and set design degree, and he is one of the most thorough and specific designers I've ever worked with, and he is
Hardworking.
incredibly hardworking. So part of how the design comes about is the director, and in this instance Dick, will start communicating via phone and email about the images he's having, what period he's seeing, is he feeling colors, and then the designer will come back with some questions, and this designer again has worked in this space, so he understands the breadth and scope of how large the space is, and then he'll start shooting images via email because he lives in New York. Our designer lives in New York. And then, Dick will respond to those images, and then he will start to nail down the basics. But then what happens is in our weekly production meetings, which again, that's the director, the costumer, the lighting designer, sound, the technical director, the choreographer, all a stage manager. We meet weekly to
Starting in May or so.
right. And so then, we can be in the space and start measuring and say, well, if I walk this many feet, how many steps is that? And we want them to be wider he really wanted to speak to the grandeur of this sort of lifestyle this home represents, and so it really needed to have this breadth. And then what happens, and of course he's in the same moment, he's working in a space in New York and bringing some things here, and then building some things right here on campus. The larger things he builds here, some of the smaller things he builds in New York, and then some we work in the sculpture studio and outdoors here at the college. And he's often here from 9 in the morning until it's too dark to see for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I had that perception.
Yeah, so there's a lot of detail in this.
Yeah.
So he will then, do things. He's thinking about, like, I want it to look like marble. So he's thinking about what layers of paint, and we have volunteers come in a couple of times and do base layers, and then he's adding on layers. But then what happens is we're in rehearsal, and we may say, oh, well, this seemed great on paper and theory, but actually those two step units in the front are beautiful, but we need 2 on each side, and we need 4 in the back. So suddenly what had 1 egress in the back and 2 in the front, we have 4, 5, 6, 8 step units. Suddenly there was no swing originally. We wanted a swing.
Oh, how'd you do the swing, by the way?
Ladders and climbing. But not me. Oh yeah, Brian was out there, fully up in the tree.
That is so great too.
It's an amazing. Well, again, the space is so magical, and how do you? Again, so he wanted to really build something that is not a natural element, but then at the same time work with that. The band is under the tree, the swing, creating a small pond by gracious permission of the college. So the design, again, it is, I think this is definitely one of my favorite designs because it's really beautiful. We've seen people that as the set was being built, I am not personally a Facebooker, but some of our musical director, Joseph Getter, who is also phenomenal and has been with us all 8 years at the college, sent out some pictures as the set was being designed, and I saw responses. A woman who used to be the head of the English department for all of the Middletown public schools, and her response was, "Where is this?" Because not that she didn't recognize that as part of the college. She's been to the Grove, but didn't, because the set is so expansive and gorgeous, couldn't have been built.
Right, and then there's like a 3-piece live orchestra that's actually part of the set, and that's something the designer has to work in, is where do we put them and how do we make them look like they belong in this world. And one of the trickier parts I found design-wise and directorially is there's a scene near the end at Hero's Tomb, and so you had to create this tomb that is in a slightly different location where they go at midnight to read epitaphs and cry and be sad and sing around her tomb. And so he created this tomb out in the middle of the field that I think the audience spends a lot of the evening wondering, what is that out there and why is it there? And it's only the next to last scene in the play that you finally are revealed why that's there.
And I think also what's nice about that I would maybe disagree, because I think the notion is that it's there and then you forget about it because of its placement. It's far enough away from the central action that you take note of it, and then it just sort of falls away until suddenly, by torchlight, it's brought to life and death, as it were.
Yeah. So what were the biggest technical challenges working out there?
I think that in terms of him building, getting those windows up, there's 7 really large windows.
I was going to go look to see what
in the trees.
Are they suspended? Is that it?
They're initially suspended, and then he built some things from the
Supports.
ground up, some supports to hold them in place. But that took about 5 people, a full day to get them just roughly up there, and then he spent several days adjusting to try and get them in just to look right, because the ground is also not even, which is a design challenge. If you're trying to create this beautiful 40-foot wide, Sicilian palace, but you don't have ground that's even. So you see the palace is a little bent, like an old building might be. But then he has to somehow figure out how to match the windows so they don't look
To the
like
alignment
they
of the
don't
ground.
align with. So there was a lot of design challenges for him that he kind of created for himself by making this big thing. And I think by the end he was like, what was I thinking?
Very ambitious.
But again, he is committed to doing quality work, and he wasn't going to cut corners. Ultimately, he just put in the time. He has a day job working at a Broadway scene shop in New York, so he builds sets for Broadway productions. but he basically took most of the summer off.
He took a hiatus from his day job to be able to finish for us.
And
I think one of the, if I can interject, Dick, one of the biggest challenges for us, and this is pretty much every year, technically, is sound. We have, all of our actors wear cordless lavalier body mics, and it's not just the equipment, which is it's one of the most expensive elements of doing outdoor Shakespeare is sound. So it's not just the equipment, it's that, so if you have, like this year, we have 19 actors who are body mic'd. There are only so many channels and frequencies, and speaking of radio, one of the issues is that sometimes radio takes up hits the frequency of an actor. It's much more complicated. It's not my school of expertise, but it's very, very challenging to keep everybody's frequencies and channels functional, even beyond just the literal equipment that's attached to every actor's body, and all of the cords. So that's a challenge.
And I think when you were there on Friday, we were still having some sound problems. The Thursday and Friday, we had some sound problems that finally smoothed out for Saturday and Sunday. And it's a huge difference for the experience of the audience, because it just, as soon as you go crackle or somebody's mic comes out, you pop this bubble, this illusion that you've created.
I know.
And just frustrating as can be.
So don't you wonder how they did it in Shakespeare's time? I mean,
they spoke loud.
Very, very, very loud.
Well, we did the first year that we performed here, when we did Midsummer Night's Dream in 2006. We didn't have any money, so we couldn't afford to do mics, and everybody just had to project. And I think for the actors, that's most challenging in the intimate scenes, when you're trying to be close to somebody and speak intimately to them, but you have to make 200 or 300 people in a field hear this.
It's one of the things that's interesting as an educator. It's when I'm working with people, particularly when I'm teaching Shakespeare. It's one of the early exercises that I play with in terms of vocal management projection, is working closely with someone, and then having that same bit of material working as far as you can in the space that you're working in, and they have to be big and fill space, and then have them come back to being close together and being as big as they were when they were far away. Because it's interesting when we have new actors to the company, as we always do, and this year we do, even some that are trained. They may have MFAs in acting. Many people don't ever have the opportunity to work outside or do outdoor Shakespeare. So a number of the artists that we work with, it's their first time doing outdoor Shakespeare, and no matter how much training you have for proscenium stage or a black box, it's very different when you're working outdoors. And it's one of the great things I think about so many of the people that work with us, is the ability to do just that, Dick, that you spoke of, is being able to fill space and reach people, and yet still have nuance in terms of your understanding and relationship and storyline, and the emotional and personal and psychological connection to that, having that subtlety, and yet being heard and being understood, and having that subtlety reach the folks who have chosen to sit in the shade under the tree way in the back. So it's a challenge and a gift, but I think even if you have a microphone, you have to be able to do that, because it will only project it will only amplify what you're doing. It won't create what's not there. But yes, so we have lovely artists who are able to do that. So
before we finish off this program, we need to tell our loyal listeners, if they wish to come to the play, when they can come, and how much it costs to come, and what to bring, and of course where we are, 100 Training Hill Road.
In Middletown. Yes. And so the play will be held Thursday through Sunday evening, the 25th to the 28th of July. Play itself starts at 7, but the live music starts at 6, and we have 4 really great musicians, each night a different musician. Lorena Garay is on Thursday, a guitarist from Puerto Rico. On Friday, I think it's Noah Behrman Trio. He's jazz musician. Saturday is Stacy Phillips.
And Paul Howard duet. They're sort of Americana.
Dobro and fiddle. And then on Sunday is Ronnie Arbo, who is a local gem here, lives here in Middletown but travels all over the country. Tickets are $20 for adults, $10 for students and seniors. You can buy them online at art-farm.org, or you can get them at the door, because it's an outdoor venue, so we can squeeze as many people as we need to in. Did I forget
And what to
anything?
bring?
What to bring? Well, we recommend bring a picnic, bring your blanket or lawn chair. We keep the lower part of the field reserved for people on blankets, so they don't end up with somebody in a chair in front of them. And then the upper 2/3 of the field are for people with chairs, which we find more and more people tend to bring chairs. And yeah, bring whatever you like. We do have ice cream for sale, but and we have lovely ArtFarm T-shirts, and we've been selling these BPA-free plastic water bottles filled with ice, which was great on the hot nights. So you can stick it on your neck.
Yeah,
and
somebody sitting in front of me had one, and I thought, how smart of you. But he actually bought them.
They're great. You stick them in your
wish I'd
cooler.
known
They
that.
keep it cool, and by the end, it's water to
Yeah.
drink. I do want to just chime in because we have a special night happening Thursday. I'll just shout out, which is Medical Heroes Night. One of the characters is Hero, who quote unquote dies and comes back to life, even though she didn't really die. And we have invited people from the medical community. Anybody who identifies themselves as part of the medical community on Thursday the 25th gets in for half price. And we've reached out to all of the medical establishments right down the road from Middlesex, as well as the Community Health Center and Middlesex Hospital. So we're hoping that folks will come on out.
You come up with every good idea that one could imagine. It's really fantastic. It is Medical Alley, really, between
is.
here and downtown
And
Middletown.
folks who often don't come up to the campus, and we would like to get them
And
up
I got to
here.
believe you're building a following, too. Yeah.
Hope so.
Yeah, I'm seeing so many people here. On Saturday night, we're inviting the alumni of Middlesex Community
great.
College to come, too, and hang
Love it.
out and see Shakespeare. I hope for the bazillionth time, but maybe for the first time, and they'll be turned on by the magic of Shakespeare. It's heaven. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining me today, and I want to thank you for bringing Shakespeare to the college. It's and keeping Shakespeare alive just for Shakespeare's sake.
Yay,
Right.
Shakespeare!
So exactly. Thank you, Marcella Trowbridge and Dick Wheeler from ArtFarm, and I'm Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College, and a loyal follower of Shakespeare, and grateful to the artists who make our communities richer so that life is worth living. So I wish you all a good day.